What's up, everybody? Welcome back to What Is This Podcast? With you, as always, my name is Dave, and with me, as always, my man Gene.
Yo, yo.
So let's start off with a bit of housekeeping. Gene, what's been up?
Same old, just the daily grind. We just finished the first episode as far as producing it, editing it, and producing it. As far as, how it looks, I mean, it's okay. It's very limited because I essentially only had one video feed of the both of us.
Right.
And, if anybody who's familiar with Zoom, I was on the speaker mode viewers option, which means that whoever's speaking, the video is gonna kind of, pop to them.
Right.
Which, kind of, it's very limiting, you know what I mean? So, I put together whatever it is that I had going, you know what I mean? And it looks fine, but I feel like it could be better.
Yeah, everything could always be better. I think it looks, for our first one, I think it looks pretty damn good.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But what I think I'm gonna try differently, because I haven't edited the second episode yet. And just so you guys know, this is the third episode.
Yep.
We've made it this far. I think I'm gonna use less animation. If there's gonna be any animated elements, I think that it should only be limited to one, because that the human brain can only focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't want too many distractions going on.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. I will say, like, now that I've actually think about it, like, with the podcast being animated and the border being animated, like there was a lot going on in the frame. I didn't find it super distracting, but I
Yeah.
totally agree. Like, you can only
Sure.
focus on so much at once.
Exactly. So it's an iterative process. So we'll make incremental improvements along the way.
Exactly. Which is, it's what this is about. It's a learning process. So the Podbean is now, we have our Podbean up, and I will be switching
Yep.
to, I'll be upgrading to premium within the week.
Oh, sweet. Yep. Awesome.
So we can get everything going. I got the logo in there.
Sweet.
So that's good. We got the Gmail set up,
Wait.
which we should probably start giving out at some point.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think the way that we're really going to communicate with people is through the socials,
Sure,
like through the
yeah.
DMs. You know what I mean? I mean, eventually, I definitely would like to have a domain name and a user, an email account associated with that.
100%.
That domain. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
we'll figure out ways to talk to you.
Exactly. And that leads us into the subject of the day, which is, the idea of audience participation in podcasting and just
Sure.
and the internet in general.
Sure.
Just, how to build a community of followers and fans and all that stuff.
Yep.
So, what are your thoughts on
Well,
on
I mean, your
audience?
community. Yeah, I mean, your community is everything, right? I mean, that is the people that are going to support you. Those are the people that are essentially paying your bills, whether it's directly or indirectly through advertisement revenue,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? So, if there is one aspect of any business, especially if it's some form of media online, I think cultivating your audiences should be like tippy top of your priority.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's who's going to pay if we're trying to do this
Yeah.
as a career. Like,
Yeah.
that's the audience is technically the boss, especially with what we're setting up here,
Sure.
in terms of audience dictating different things. We
Sure.
need to have a good, healthy sort of symbiotic relationship with our audience. And that's the key. I think, people who, like, in terms of music and, like, I know that the biggest bands in the world have a great relationship with their audience.
Yeah.
And like giving the fans specific things, and they're just very fan driven. And
Yeah.
I just think that's the best way, because if you piss off your audience, then you're not gonna.
I mean, like I said, they're paying your bills.
Right, exactly.
The reason why people are tuning in is because they feel as though you're providing some kind of value,
Right.
right?
Right.
And in exchange, you know, they give us the opportunity to, you know, potentially make a living off, you know, what we love to do.
Right.
You know, so you have to respect that relationship.
Right.
And you have to keep it honest, and it has to be mutually beneficial.
Right. And it can't go like nobody wants to be taken advantage of. Our fans don't 100%. We don't want to be taken advantage of by our fans.
Yeah.
You know. I think it's a very, it's a balancing act with everything in life.
Okay.
But
Sure.
but in terms of like what we want to do, like where do you think we're gonna sort of set up where we're gonna have the most connection with our audience? Do you think it's a Reddit? Do you think it's the actual comment section of this YouTube page? Comment section of like the Podbean page where our audio thing is set up?
Yeah.
Or
nobody goes to Podbean.
Right. But for right now, like that is the website that we have. That's our only website.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
But I agree. Nobody goes to that damn website.
Like nobody's like, hey, let me go on Podbean and check out this podcast. Nobody,
unless they've been brought there by a link.
Yeah, or if they work there,
right?
You know, but
poor Podbean.
But no, in my head, you know, with knowledge that I have, I feel like in 2021 for what we're doing, the best I guess you'd call them portal, in the sense, right? That is gonna be TikTok.
Yep.
That is quickly becoming the #1 platform in the world. It's not just there yet, but it's gonna happen, and I feel like it's gonna happen before the year's out, if you ask me. TikTok and Instagram, yes, you know what I mean, will have a presence, but I feel like the two important platforms are gonna be TikTok and Reddit. That's where, we're gonna actually cultivate a community, right? Because essentially what we're doing is create a tribe, right?
Sure.
Kind of create a squad of like-minded people who share similar or even opposing ideas, but like the platform to kind of discuss things.
Right.
So I feel like those are the two platforms that I really want to focus on. And you know, we'll just kind of take it from there, and I'm sure we'll get, you know, some new information along the way.
Absolutely.
And there will be other, you know, avenues that we could potentially pursue in order to grow this thing.
Of course. And I mean, that again, the whole thing is to just get new information, you know, like this podcast is just one massive troubleshoot.
That's it. Yeah. Such is life.
Exactly. And yeah, I think we touched about this in episode 2. We touched on Reddit and TikTok as, you know, as tools for marketing and different things.
Sure.
And I think Reddit for me personally is probably like the biggest space, like to have our own subreddit. Like that's kind of like a dream to have our own our own subreddit, because I think, you know, I think TikTok is where we personally like we'll talk to the fans a lot, but I think like the subreddit is really a place for the fan community themselves to gather with each other. Like that's where the community sort of starts. I feel
like TikTok is where people will discover us.
Yes.
And I feel like Reddit is where we cultivate the community.
Which I mean, I guess as I say it out loud, it's like, well, yeah, obviously, like, no shit, Sherlock. But you know, we're just going through it. But
we're just working it through. We're literally like we're talking through it, and we're trying to figure it out as we speak.
Right.
You know.
And it's just interesting because, like, you know, I know another podcast. I'm not sure if we spoke about this on mic or not in the last episode, but there is a podcast that I listen to who, through their Patreon, there's a tier you can get where you can get into a private Facebook group.
You mentioned this,
and that's a you know, a very community driven place, and that's been great. Like I love being a part of it, but I find myself not participating in it so much. I do from time to time, and I think I don't know why that is, but in thinking about this, like I would much rather have a Reddit than a Facebook group. You know what I mean? Because I don't know, Facebook, it's just getting kind of dicey over there with like what you can do and what you can't do, and sort of, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Reddit just has, you know, just it's the culture of Reddit
Yeah.
is better suited for, a genuine, sincere community, where Facebook, it's the whole point. Every single click, every single image is meant to kind of keep you on, and
Right.
keep you engaging with the
Right.
platform. Where I feel like Reddit is less about that,
Yeah.
and it's really more focused on like the actual engagement
Right.
within
Yeah.
the communities. You know what I'm saying?
It's like
So I just feel like,
Facebook is for presenting and Reddit is for communicating.
yeah. Well, there you go. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree.
Now, what
I agree.
about something that's becoming popular? And this is another thing from this podcast, which is called Junk Food Cinema, and I urge people to go and listen to that. Free plug. They
Yep.
have in no way.
Yep.
I am in no way associated with them. But
Just fan.
they do this. They do Zoom calls a bunch. Kind of like we're doing now.
Okay.
With their audience. What do you think of that as a sort of as an engagement tool where we host? Now, only one of them does it really.
Yeah.
But do you think there's merit in that? And like every so often,
100.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, the reason why I feel like podcast is quickly becoming the number one form of media is because of the interpersonalness of it. You know what I'm saying? I love podcasts, especially video podcasts, podcasts, if you will, because I feel like I'm in the room. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm part of the conversation. Granted, I'm not actually interacting with these people, but like, especially with a great producer like Jamie from JRE, it almost it kind of feels like your head's on a swivel, kind of watching these two individuals having a conversation. You know what I mean? Rather than some radio program or some program TV that has a 5 minutes time slot to have a very complicated conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree, and it's just right. Like it's that feeling of being in the room with somebody, and they're talking to you. It's like
Exactly.
I think the best analog for podcasting is obviously radio, and like a good radio DJ makes you feel like you're hanging out with him, listening to music, and I think that's what podcasting does. And I think
Yeah.
because like I was and I think having a Zoom call every once in a while with your audience, especially this kind of thing, because that gives us more of a direct way of talking to them, and we can set parameters on that, limit it to because if we just have a whole bunch of fucking people in there, then it gets unruly. And
we'll figure it out along the way,
right. But I think that would be an interesting way of getting direct feedback from the audience, and doing different things.
Absolutely.
Now, in terms of comment sections can get complicated.
Ugly.
Yeah.
Very ugly.
So what do you think? Because it's sort of hard. Like you don't want to like impose rules. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to restrict the flow of ideas or communication. But I mean, like the shit gets real sometimes. And so like how do you have thoughts on how we would navigate sort of that realm of like like my whole thing is just like don't be a dick. If you're being a dick, like if you're being a troll, but you're just being funny and you're just just being sort of like an asshole, like a funny asshole.
That's
whatever. That's cool with me. But if you're being a dick and you're just harassing people or just like stirring up shit to stir up shit, like in my opinion, that should just get deleted because it's not adding anything to the conversation. It's not adding anything to anybody's life. It might be adding to the troll's life. But that would be my only sort of thing. Is just like don't be a dick, and we'll have no problems with you.
I agree with you 100%. What's cool about a lot of these communities is for a place like TikTok or even YouTube, like there's certain keywords that you can actually put in that will automatically get deleted if put into the thing. So like we can automatically we can kind of automate moderation in that sense,
right?
Which is kind of cool. You know what I'm saying? So like You know, but like you said, you know what I mean? Like, just don't be a dick. I mean, if you as long as you are providing some kind of feedback, I mean, if you think we suck, that's cool.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to put a bunch of bad comments in, it only helps us in the algorithm.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I encourage it. But like once you start like attacking people for the sake of attacking people, you know, and you're obviously toxic to the community. You're that bad apple. We're just gonna get you up out of here.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's plain and simple. You know.
Right. And I would say if you're gonna tell us that we suck, don't just tell us that we suck. Like if you're just like you guys suck, like fine, but why? Tell us why you think we suck.
Yeah.
Like give us actual constructive criticism. Like I hate comment sections where it's just like these people suck and they're untalented and blah 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 blah. And it's like, well, why? Like why do you personally think that? And I don't see that a lot in comment sections. I just see you know, generalized, I fucking hate you, you suck.
But I mean, how often are you like honestly lurking in the comment?
Depends. It depends on what. And on YouTube, not often.
Okay.
On certain websites, I am, and it's not people telling them like that the blog writer sucks. It's usually just the people they're talking about suck. That they suck, and then you know, just I'm a lurker on Reddit. Like I don't know. I don't participate on the internet a lot just because I just don't feel like I have anything to really add most of the time that hasn't already been added by a million other people on the internet. No, that's not even. It's just like I'm getting. Usually, it's like I'm getting to the thread so late, like specifically on Reddit. I don't really search by new, so I'm always sort of like late, and it's like anything that I want to say has already probably been said. I've already seen said a million times, so it's like I'm not just gonna pile on. If it was our own thing, I would definitely communicate.
Of course,
just because whatever.
We gotta be careful. You gotta be careful with that. You know, it really depends on the size of your audience. If you have 1 million subscribers on YouTube, I honestly would probably hire somebody to read the comments for me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because psychologically, it would just be too much after
a while.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, like, I would participate at, like, every so often I would say something in the group. But, like, and even with the Reddit, like, if you have a large enough subreddit, I'm going to want somebody else to moderate that shit. Like, I'm not going to sit there and moderate, you know what I mean? 2 million plus people.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to act like...
Crossed,
I'm not going to act like... I'm not gonna act like I can't get sensitive at times. You know what I'm saying? If I see something, you know, that hits, you know, that kind of, you know, hits a nerve,
right?
That it could potentially ruin my day, and I don't need any of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, you gotta, it's a kind of a weird balancing act, and I kind of feel like, you know, if we are blessed enough for this thing to grow,
right?
You know, there will be signs along the way that'll let us know like how to, you know,
absolutely
proceed accordingly.
And like I have been personally accused of being a sensitive person, so yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
there's nothing wrong with it. It's just know thyself.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you are a sensitive person, then just kind of, you know, like I said, act accordingly.
Right. But I am a lot less sensitive when I'm being constructively criticized.
It's tough, man. It's tough, man. Like you know, I've been reading a lot of I wouldn't say reading a lot, but I've been reading a book by Ray Dalio and listened to a lot of his interviews. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who don't know, Ray Dalio is considered, you know, one of the best investors in human history. Owns the largest, one of the owners of the largest investment firm in the world. He talks about this idea of an idea meritocracy, right? Mm-hmm. Where the hierarchy of the organization doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the best idea wins, right? Right. And this idea of radical transparency. Because, you know, like in corporations, it's kind of a need-to-know basis, right? Like, you'll be asked to do something and everything's compartmentalized, and you sometimes don't even really know the consequences or even the point of what you're doing.
Right.
Right? Where in a organization that kind of practices an idea meritocracy and radical transparency, you are privy to everything. You have the right to all the information, most of the information. You know what I mean? It's it's intellectually it sounds like a great idea, but like emotionally it's a tough thing because people are telling you all the time and pointing out your weaknesses and things you need to work on and being brutally honest. And like I said, you know, intellectually, I kind of like that idea in terms of like, you know, the potential to grow as an individual and a professional.
Of course.
But like when you're in it and like your emotions are fucking ringing,
Right.
it's a kind of it's a tough thing to digest, you know?
Right. You know, it's like, you know, facts versus feeling. Facts outweigh your feelings, and it's like, yeah, but we all have pretty deep feelings. Like, unless you're a sociopath, you know, you're gonna get caught up in your fucking feelings.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you know, yeah, it's just, you know, like all ideas, it sounds fucking great on paper.
Sure.
You know, and yeah, that is like a perfect thing. I don't know. I think we could get there as a society, though. Because like a meritocracy, like that's sort of like what you want to be. Like you get jobs, you get through life, you get things based on what you do, based on merit. It's realistically very hard to attain.
Yeah,
a society like that. And it's not even just because of emotions. Like, you know, there's a million reasons, I guess, why that it's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's a lot of its you know, upper mobility, for the most part has a lot to do with obviously your abilities, your skills, and your knowledge. But you know, for the most part, it's relationships. Right. It's your network. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Who you know.
You know, if you had exactly. You know what I mean? But if you had like if you removed kind of the human element from, you know, the that process, then you know what I mean? It really is whoever is best at whatever it is you're trying to do or accomplish. You know what I'm saying? And that'd be interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like it'd be interesting to see how society would unfold with that kind of a system.
It would breed a lot more competition, like a lot more competition, which could be healthy, but could also lead to some really fucked up situations.
Yeah, I mean, there's always unintended consequences whenever you implement any kind of policy or any kind of change or any kind of system. You know what I mean? That's just the nature of it. But it'll be eye-opening at the very least for, you know, individuals, for certain groups. You know what I mean? And it's, you know, it would only, if anybody or any group would fall into a disadvantage, it would at least give them an idea how to move forward in order to progress.
Right. It would.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It would idealistically. Yeah. Yep. And it would level the playing field a little bit more in certain situations. But getting back to our audience.
So let me ask you this. Yeah. What are your assumptions of what our audience looks like? Right.
Generally, it's probably a lot of creative types. People who are interested in just because how we've set this up, you know, we're sort of going through a creative process of how a podcast gets created. So I would say people that want to get into podcasting, creative people. To be honest, I would find it also to just be a general audience at the same time, because I feel like as we go on, you know, we've had ideas of like going through different podcast categories. So it's like at different times, I feel like our audience is going to look different depending on what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like if we're doing a season where we're doing a bunch of different podcast ideas, you know, our audience is going to look very different. You know, we'll get new people who come in, like if we're not pretending, but if we're doing like a religious thing, we'll get X amount of those types of people, and then I'd say most of them would probably leave when they come back next week. Sure. And we're not doing that.
Sure.
But yeah, I would think it's probably a pretty general demographically. I don't know. I'm not really good at making those sorts of assumptions.
Yeah.
I would say probably age range, probably, you know, the 18 to 45 set.
So that's a pretty good, that's a pretty wide net.
Right. What about you?
I'd have to say, I mean, I would have to agree.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of obvious, group that pops up to me is the people who want to get into podcasting, right? You know what I mean? If we have enough, you know, episodes and we've seen some kind of remote success, and it's the podcast about making a podcast. You were kind of walking you through the process. I mean, that's a great resource right there.
Right.
Right. If it actually does pan out. So I would imagine that would be one of the stronger groups that would be interested. But like I said, the general, the general, I guess, public or whatever,
Right.
just the general audience. And it'll be interesting. But I mean, I feel like over time, as there people who kind of join the tribe, I think we're gonna slowly succumb to the will of the audience, right? Because
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you have a group of people that tune in specifically just to see us talk, and there's inadvertently kind of come up, with like a set of expectations. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
like we're gonna have to meet those. You know what I mean? And they're gonna let us know whether or
Right.
not those expectations are met.
Right. All right. We're sort of setting up a little bit of a meritocracy
Yeah.
in here.
That's what I would like. You know what I mean? Like, we'll see
Right.
how it pans out, because I can be sensitive at times too, and I can be moody,
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
I have my good days and my bad days. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna be interesting to see how this unfolds.
Right. You're a human being. And as such, you do human being shit.
It's a T-shirt.
Right. There you go. So another place that I think communities sort of get built, and this is something we can also talk about under another umbrella in a different episode, but Patreon.
Okay.
Because I think, with Patreon, and that is sort of like, really when I think the audience would start to drive the ship a lot more, because when they're paying for it, they're a little bit like when they're the producers essentially.
That's a good way to put it. Maybe that's how we. I don't mean to cut you off, but maybe that's how we name the tiers, right? Like producer, and that'd be kind of cool, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect.
That's
at a
kind of
certain
cool,
level,
right?
Yeah. Because obviously we'll have like we haven't talked a lot about this, but we'll have the general tier of just, $1 you'll get
Access to something.
Yeah, you'll get like an early release. Like you'll get it on Monday and not Tuesday, if that's when we're releasing these.
Yeah.
Which I think it's interesting how we're on episode 3 and these episodes will start coming out, and the people who will be listening to it will be sort of ahead of us in terms of when it's coming out and where the website is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny that the audience is ahead of us in a release schedule thing.
It is what it is. That's what sets us apart.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fun. But yeah, I think that a producer tier is definitely something that there should be, where
I like that idea.
But I do think that also sort of can build a good sense of community, because there are when I go into like my Patreon, the things that I'm subscribed to or whatever, there are a lot of comments there too. I don't read those a lot. Like I don't spend a lot of time on Patreon. I just sort of like I'll pay for it and then I'll go away and I'll get notifications. I just like seeing my name at the end of certain YouTube videos. Sure, of course. But I mean, there is a community there that I have noticed. So it's just another good avenue. There's just so many. It's good that we live in a time where we don't just have to be beholden to like a Facebook or a Twitter, which I'm not. Yeah. We've said actively we're not interested in.
Fuck Twitter.
Like I don't even know if I want to have a Twitter handle even for like
I don't
profile purposes, like but yeah, there's just so many avenues these days for community building, just through the grace of the internet.
Yep.
It's just nice to not be limited. I guess that's my point right now. Like,
I agree.
And in terms of the Patreon, I do think that can bring you even more close to your audience. Because like you said, we said they become producers, and when money is on the line and they're giving us, their hard-earned money, then we really have to fucking show up and provide this whatever service that we're providing. Because if we
And, like,
don't, then
what's
they
real?
disappear. So
What's more intimate than that? You know what I mean? I kind of feel like there isn't. I mean, they are signaling to us that, like, they are supporters. They value what we do, and they are playing their part in making sure that this ship is still floating.
right.
And you gotta respect that, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, yeah. If we get to that point, man, that would be a huge accomplishment and a huge milestone. And I look forward to, at least attempting to get.
Yeah. And yeah, so do I. And that's the dream. Is just to get to a place where we have a great audience. And yeah, just having a large audience that pays us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. You know what I mean? It's a great, big audience, some really great sponsors. You know what I mean? Some great conversations, down the line. Because I'm sure, if this thing does in fact grow, there'll be opportunities where we'll bring people in, we'll have conversations with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just gives us more, it's a more opportunity to expand and grow as a show and as individuals.
Right. And like we continually say, that is the point.
That is the point.
That is the point of this pointless podcast. And yeah, and I think that's I don't know. I think that's about all I got on this subject.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much all that I have for today.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining us one more time on this journey.
Yep.
I am Dave.
And I am Gene.
And join us again next time to figure out what is this podcast.
Peace.
Peace.
Cool.